Hi there, Jessica here. Welcome to the video guide for Lucilius HL. Lucilius is a 6-player raid unlocking at level 170 and is widely considered the hardest raid in Grandblue Fantasy. Clearing it will require powerful grids, specialized party compositions, and a detailed understanding of all of the mechanics. The rewards for beating such a hard encounter are the best weapons in the game. The fully upgraded Dark Opus weapons are the best weapons available for both Magna and Primal players, free-to-play players, and premium players. This guide is divided into 3 sections. The timestamps will be below. First, we will talk about all of the mechanics of the fight. Second, I will go over character and grid preparations you can make before the fight. And third, I will play a full Lucilius HL run with commentary so you can see everything come together. Be warned, this will be a very long video, as this guide is meant to be comprehensive. I've included a link in the description to a guide by my crew member and friend, Steve. It is extremely thorough, and I highly recommend reading through it if a written guide is more your thing. Seriously, this thing is 25 pages. Alright, let's buckle in and get started. Lucilius is a 6-man encounter, as I said, and elixirs are, of course, not available. Strike time also has no effect here. The time limit is 30 minutes. That seems like a lot of time, but it's not. I've seen lots of fights go to the last few minutes, and even one went to the last 30 seconds. It's going to be a factor of how powerful everyone is, how much damage they're pushing through, but also how careful and slow they're being. There are tons of mechanics here that can cause a party wipe and by extension a raid wipe, and because of that it pays to play slow, but because of that it also means the time limit is very, very relevant. The next mechanic to know about for this fight is the Grand Finale Countdown. This is a timer that starts at 6. Anytime a character dies from anybody's party, it will go down by 1. If the timer ever ticks down to 0, Lucilius will start casting the End. As you might expect, the End is an attack that kills everybody in your party. Front row, back row, doesn't matter. It also ignores auto-revive. So basically, you're going to have to be very careful. This is why the fight tends to play out a little bit slowly, because you do not want to randomly lose characters and tick down this timer unnecessarily. It will tick down as the fight goes on, just from random deaths and from certain mechanics. It happens, but it cannot hit 0, so be careful. The next thing to know is not so much a mechanic as a general aspect of the fight. Lucilius hits very, very hard. His normal attacks hit all allies and deal random element damage. Because it's random, sometimes he will pick the element that your element is weak against, and because of that you will take damage spikes. Know that the standard party composition, and we'll discuss this later on, is 6 Spartans. There's very little flexibility there, because you generally want to take every single turn with a phalanx. Some elements, with some characters or some grids, can move out of phalanx, but in general, try to always have a phalanx when you're about to move. The next mechanic to talk about is Evangelist Blade. This is a stacking buff on Lucilius. He stacks it every time he uses a special attack, and if he uses Axion Apocalypse, he'll stack it an additional time. You can lower the number of stacks on him by using Dispels and Dispel-like effects. Now, in addition to the damage increase on him, he will start gaining special abilities if you let this stack. On 2 stacks, Axiom Apocalypse will remove debuffs from him. That's not a huge deal. On 3 stacks, his normal attacks will start removing buffs from your allies. That is a big deal. Don't let it get to 3 if you can possibly avoid it. On 4 stacks, damage dealt is always against your weak element, and in addition, Axiom Apocalypse does 10,000 plain damage. Obviously not a good thing. On 5 stacks, it gets really dangerous. He starts ignoring damage cuts, and Axiom Apocalypse will lower your max HP, stackable, every time he does it. Don't let it get to 5, if at all possible. The next mechanic is Wings of the Word. Lucilius starts with this from the join trigger and will heal him every turn. It also caps the amount of damage you can take based on the main character classes of the raid. With no duplicates is a 300,000 damage cap. With 6 duplicates, as we are running with 6 Spartans, it'll be a 50,000 damage cap. This obviously would make the fight impossible, but we can remove this, and we will remove this. The way you get rid of Wings of the Word is with the black wings. I haven't really talked about this yet. We'll talk about this in a second. But basically, it's the second entity that you fight alongside Lucilius. To remove Wings of the Word, you let the black wings charge attack once. It will cast Mars, which removes Wings of the Word, and does some other things. If it charge attacks a second time, however, it's going to cast the Fig. This is very bad because it restores Wings of the Word. It won't do this if the wings are below 50%. So you need to bring the wings to 50% before it can charge attack twice. There's a few ways you can do this, including delays and gravity and whatnot. But the main thing is, if you get in a position where the wings are about to charge attack again, and they are still above 50%, stop everything you're doing, let your teammates catch up, and bring the wings below 50 before you continue. Do not attack into the wings and let them charge attack a second time, or you're probably going to wipe the raid. While we're down here, let's talk about black wings. These are an entity you fight alongside Lucilius. They don't normally attack, but they do charge attack, and they do have triggers. The first charge attack will always be Mars, does dark damage, causes Lucilius to lose Wings of the Word, and all allies regain Forbidden Fruit. Below 50%, they inflict attack down on all allies. Forbidden Fruit is a buff that boosts your charge attack specs, but causes every person on your team that charge attacked to take 10,000 plain damage. Be careful of this, especially if you're using Zoe. If you conjunction before charge attacking on this, everybody will die because you'll be on 1 HP and the plain damage will kill you. Next is the Fig. It does dark damage to all allies, and as mentioned before, it will restore Wings of the Word to Lucilius if the wings are above 50%. If you're below 50%, it will inflict Zombified on all allies. That's pretty bad, so bring clears. The last thing is it will inflict Fruit of Life on all your allies. This is a buff that makes it so when a character uses a skill, it will remove Fruit of Life and will heal the character for 4,000 and heal Lucilius and the Black Wings for 1,000,000. Ideally, you don't want to trigger this too often, but if you trigger this because there's a situation that comes up, like you need to cast a Phalanx or some skill that's very important to prevent a character from dying, it is fine to trigger this. Just be aware that you are triggering this when you do it. At 70% is Sephiroth. This trigger removes all debuffs on both Lucilius and the wings. You will want to give whoever is applying debuffs, usually Wind, to reapply debuffs at 70%. This will also start the Grand Finale countdown timer. I should have mentioned this before, but characters lost before 70% do not lower that countdown. At 50%, the 7 trumpets will occur. This is the first major milestone in learning the Lucilius fight. It will cause the 12 labors to appear in Lucilius, and it will cause him to turn into his blue phase. It also will remove all debuffs on Lucilius, so give your debuffers time to reapply those debuffs. Also note that this can only be triggered by one party, and that party will gain a special benefit in that they will not have to worry about the triggers on Lucilius at 95, 85, and 60%. They will also have all their buffs dispelled. Again, if you have 7 trumpets, you will not take the 95, 85, or 60% triggers, so it is worthwhile letting somebody who has trouble dealing with those triggers take 7 trumpets. Back to Lucilius. His normal charge attack is Phosphorus. This is a massive damage attack of random element to one ally and will strip their buffs. Before 7 trumpets, this will target the highest attack character. That's going to be your main character almost definitely. After 7 trumpets, it's going to be the lowest HP character. Now, if he's in overdrive and the wings are still 50% or higher, he will cast Iblis. This is multi-hit, random element to random allies. It will randomly inflict either Petrify, Weakened, or Slashed, or all 3 potentially, depending on how lucky you are. Petrified means you cannot build charge bar, Weakened means you cannot attack, and Slash is a heavy damage over time. You will want to try and have these removed. Ideally with your own clears or by calling for clarity from the raid, and hopefully someone will clear it for you. Some of these are very nasty and do need to be cleared before you continue. A dangerous situation that can occur is if the Wings and Lucilius would both charge attack at the same time. This causes Paradise Lost to be cast, which does heavy random element damage to all the characters, ignoring elemental damage cut effects. It also inflicts Death Inelectable on all allies knocked out, meaning they cannot be rezzed. This will also trigger if the Wings are still alive when Lucilius hits 35%. This should never happen, but is worth noting. Now, because it ignores damage cuts, you're going to need special tools to survive it if this does get triggered. Someone like Vera, who has a full party substitute, can soak this for the whole team and possibly survive because of her unnaturally high defense. Other things like Mirror Image will allow you to avoid this damage, but a regular Phalanx will not cut it for avoiding Paradise Lost. Lucilius's charge attacks will also change based on the state of the Wings. If the Wings are below 50% but not dead, his charge attacks will become Axion Apocalypse. This is both in normal and overdrive. This does 3-hit random element damage to random allies, increases Lucilius's mode bar, and removes debuffs from Lucilius. In addition, he will gain an additional level of Evangelist Blade when casting this. If the Wings are, however, dead, his normal charge attack will return to being Phosphorus as discussed before, but his overdrive charge attack will become Orbital Blackness. This is a multi-hit random element damage attack to random allies. It extends buff skill cooldowns and inflicts Halation. Halation basically hides the HP bar of any character that is inflicted on. At 85% and 60%, Lucilius will cast Axion. These are two slightly different versions, so you should know the differences. At 85% is a 3-hit random element damage attack against an ally with lowest HP. At 60% is the same thing but against all allies. If any ally is knocked out by this attack, all allies receive 30,000 plain damage. Obviously, you don't want someone to die this because it could potentially cause everybody to die this. Be careful of these triggers. At 25%, Lucilius will use Go for Wood Arc. This removes all debuffs from him. It will also knock out allies that share the same race as other allies in the party, affecting duplicate races after the first one and ignoring the main character. It also inflicts Death Inelectable and Sumless and deploys the Heaven's Floodgate field effect. That causes battle turns to progress by 2 or 3 per turn. Now, Go Forward Arc works in a very specific way. Let's say my team is Funf, Zoe, and Dranvira. Because Zoe and Dranvira are both primal characters, one of them would be knocked out. Because Dranvira is in the second slot after Zoe, it will knock out Dranvira. Be aware of this. In general, you're going to want to plan your team so you don't have an excessive number of duplicate races. A lot of teams will have one, like the team I just mentioned, which is a very standard team for Light. That's fine. Losing a character to Go Forward Arc is not a terribly big deal as long as no one is losing a ton of characters and not every single person is losing a character, because that would obviously add up to 6 deaths for the timer. If you are in a situation where the timer is so low that getting Go Forward Arc to activate on your team would cause it to lower to 0, you can potentially just wait from 25% to the final burn phase on Lucilius to avoid triggering the timer before the rest of your raid has time to push him down. This is not an ideal situation, but it is something worth remembering. A trigger that should not occur unless something has gone wrong is Atheism. This happens when Lucilius reaches 75% HP while the Black Wings are still alive. It will only trigger once, but will give a random element Renunciation and Repudiation. We have not talked about labors yet, but Repudiation basically reapplies one of the first 6 labors and will require whoever's element that is to remove it again, which requires you to deal 10 million damage to Lucilius in 1 turn. Renunciation, on the other hand, removes all of Lucilius's debuffs and only allows a certain element to debuff him. This buff can be removed if he has 6 debuffs on him, but again, you shouldn't see these in a normal run. Onwards to the labors. Again, these occur after summon trumpets. The labors are arguably the most complicated part of the fight, and will require very specific characters from each element to clear. The 12 labors are all powerful buffs on Lucilius, which are removed by satisfying their specific condition. Labors 1 through 6 are elemental damage labors. As you can see, they will boost Lucilius's damage with that respective labor until they are cleared. They can each be cleared by dealing 10 million or more damage of that respective element in one turn. This represents a damage check for the fight. Your party needs to be able to deal 10 million damage in one turn, which can be difficult because Lucilius has high defense. Labor number 7 causes Lucilius to deal superior elemental damage to his targets. This can be removed by dealing 2 million or more plain damage in one turn. While this is simple to remove with specific characters, there are only a very small handful of characters that can remove this. Labor number 8 nullifies all elemental damage cuts and can only be removed by activating a train burst of 5 or more. Typically this is done by Earth, as they usually run Octo, who can do this very easily. Keep in mind that this is a very dangerous labor, and the typical strategy is as soon as Trumpets is activated, everybody stops what they're doing. They do not progress until Earth clears number 8, and usually also their elemental labor. This nullification of damage cuts nullifies phalanx effectively, and will cause people to die if they move before it's removed. The 9th labor causes the boss to regain HP every turn. This can be removed by dealing 30 or more instances of damage in one turn. Think how Akasha works. The 10th labor lands a random debuff on all allies every turn. This can be removed by ending a turn with 10 or more debuffs on Lucilius. The 11th labor can be tricky. This removes 2 buffs from all allies every turn. It can only be removed by triggering Paradise Lost. Ideally, you will want to survive Paradise Lost as well. Now, if you remember what I said before, Paradise Lost is only triggered when Lucilius and the Blackwings are both on full charge diamonds and going to charge attack at the same time. You want to use delays and gravities to manipulate this into happening on a team that can survive it. One thing to note, because the wings have to be alive for this, if you kill the wings without removing labor number 11, you cannot remove labor number 11. By extension, you also cannot remove labor number 12, and that is very bad. Labor number 12 deals plain damage to random allies every turn. This can only be removed by overcoming all the other labors. Now, this is not that big a deal to some elements that have a lot of healing, like light. However, for some elements that don't have a lot of healing, like fire, this is absolutely devastating, and you need to remove it. And this is why setting up your raid to clear every single labor is paramount for clearing this fight. So, now that we've talked about all the abilities, finally, let's talk about the general flow of the fight. I will be including a chart by my friend Steve in the description that basically reminds you of the timing of these things. But for the sake of completeness, let's talk about them. At 70% on the wings, Sephiroth triggers. 50% casts 7 trumpets. That's the beginning of the labor phases. Also doesn't reset charge diamonds, and does remove buffs on all allies. That's all there really is to know about the wings. On Lucilius, entering the fight triggers Paradise Lost. 95% is the first trigger, which is Phosphorus, then 85% is Axion. 75% Lucilius will lose all his debuffs, and if the wings are alive for some reason, he will cast Atheism. 70% charge diamonds will fill. 60% Axion will be cast. 55% all charge diamonds will be filled. 35% if the black wings are alive, which they shouldn't be at this point unless you're soloing, Paradise Lost will be cast. 25% is Go for Wood Arc. Remember, this is the thing that kills duplicate races. If for some reason you have duplicate races in excess, just wait at this point. 20% is Axion Apocalypse. 50% is again Axion Apocalypse. Now, going to 10%, Lucilius will cast Paradise Lost. This is basically a Skyfall. You need a full cut for it. 3% again, Paradise Lost. Basically, the strat is after Go Forward Arc, people will want to save like things like charge, cooldowns, whatever, until you start getting close to 10%, and then ideally burst from 10% all the way down to dead, because basically it's go time here. If the end happens, it's fine at this point if he's very low, because you still get a turn before he'll cast the end on you. That is basically the fight. So basically, pretty simple fight, right? I know. So, for the next part, we're going to discuss preparations you can do for the fight. I'm also going to be referencing Mitokuni's notes here, which I will include a link to. They are a very useful starting place as well. So now let's look at some teams and grid recommendations. I'm not going to have a comprehensive list here, but I will give some recommendations as to what characters are good for the fight, and specifically for which labors. If you want a more comprehensive list of what you can and should bring, refer to my friend Steve's guide, which I've again linked in the description. It is extremely thorough and covers pretty much all the options as of this writing. As of this writing, I have cleared with light, water, wind, earth, and dark. I haven't done fire yet, as my grid still needs a little bit more HP before I jump in with fire, but that is also a good talking point here. I'll start off with light. Since this is the team I've done it the most with, this is a fairly standard setup. I'm bringing Fun because she has a heal, obviously. She also has a clear, which is very important for when you get Iblis stacks on you. And she has, of course, her ultimate, which heals everybody and gives them guts. This is a particularly potent effect because I'm running a stamina grid, which tends to be a case with light. And with a stamina grid, you need to have max HP in order to get the maximum damage bonus. So in situations where I'm really hurt going into my labor phase, I'll just pop her 4. It will heal everyone to full, and I'll clear the labor no problem. She also has something that can be very big, which is a dispel on her charge attack. This is a quickly recurring dispel. It does require you to hit body, which can be awkward, but dispels are really important. Ideally, you want about 2 to 3 dispels. I would say 3 to be safe in order to manage Evangelist Blade stacks. On that note, I'm also bringing Granblue, who again has a dispel on her too. That is a very nice bonus here, but the big reason to bring Granblue is survivability. Because of her Aegis Merge, which is her 1, she can do a full party substitute, taking the hit for the entire team. She also has absurd defense when doing this, so she'll usually not take very much damage. And if I charge attack a few times early and need to get to full charge bar for my labor phase, using her divine weapon gives the whole team a triple attack, which also helps build charge bar very quickly. The last character I run, I've been thinking about switching Zoe for Light Saranon. Light Zoe brings a few things to the table. The big one is she can give herself a sharp boost to hostility and increase her dodge rate, so she can reduce damage on the team in general just by tanking. Another big thing is her last wish is very useful for activating during your labor phase in order to clear that labor if you need a little bit extra damage. I am running Primal, however, and her bonus isn't as good for a Primal grid, but that's neither here nor there. That is basically a reason I'm thinking about replacing her with Light Saranon, but she has been fine, and that's just kind of a flavor pick. A flavor adjustment, I guess I should say. Other things to note about this setup, I'm running Zoe, who is a Primal, and Granblue, who is also a Primal in this form. Because of that, I will have a -1 going to Go Forward Arc. That is to say, one character will for sure die and take the clock down by 1. In this case, since Granblue is second, she will be the one who gets taken out by the Go Forward Arc. If I wanted to change that so I didn't have a -1, that would be another reason to bring Light Saranon in my second slot. In the back row, I have Rabomi and Komhira. They are rarely ever relevant if things go right, which they usually do, since my group is fairly experienced at this point. But yeah, they're just high damage. Robomi in particular is super high damage in a short fight, and it's set up like that because when I go forward arc, I'll lose a character, Robomi will come forward, and she'll be ready to help push into the final burn phase. But again, it shouldn't be that much of an issue unless something has gone horribly wrong. You shouldn't plan on having to use your entire back line. Other things to note, I am a bird, and that is extremely key for this fight. Another thing I didn't talk about so much is summons. The summons I bring are Bahamut for the charge attack boost, which is important for when I go to clear my labor. Also, I can pass Bahamut to another team member if they are having trouble clearing their labor, so they can do a cross summon, get the Bahamut boost, that can help. Lucifer, again, it's extra healing. I don't really need the extra healing, but his attack up is helpful. And again, if a teammate needs healing, I can pass them a Lucifer. Athena seems like a strange choice, but with Phalanx, her 30% cut ends up being a 100% cut, which gets you past a lot of triggers. The issue with running someone like Gutsworn Alexiel, which would be a more normal pick for a lot of people, Alexiel is a one-use summon. So in a fight like this that's going to go pretty long, Alexiel loses a lot of value, especially when you can already get 100% cut with Athena plus a Phalanx. Quillen is top summon. Absolutely love Quillen in this fight. Basically gets you a whole run of extra dispels, extra heals, extra tanking with Vera, extra divine weapons for giving everyone charge attack. Just so useful. The extra delay on your hardened shield, extra phalanx. Phalanx actually is a common thing to stumble upon. If the timing on phalanx is wrong, you can hit a turn where no one has a phalanx up. In situations like that, you can Quillen or pass a Quillen, and you can get a phalanx up, get the phalanx train rolling again. Quillen is excellent. I don't recommend spending Sunlight Stones on Quillen. If you want to get an FLB Quillen, it's fairly easy. Just look in co-op for a Quillen Huanglong raid train, basically. I just click on all the channels on Impossible. You'll find one that's Huanglong Quillen with 30 people, and you'll just do a 30-person train. It takes about 45 minutes. In the space of one train, so 30 hosts, I end up getting, I think, 2 Quillen drops and 2 Huanglong drops. So very easy to farm Quillen these days. Definitely recommend you do that. Next, what should your main character bring? Well, first, your main character should be a bird, because I'm a bird, and that's important. But more important, my main character is a Spartan. 6 Spartans is a standard layout. I do not recommend deviating from that. 6 is ideal because you need a phalanx rotation. Even with 6, you can get stuck in situations where someone can't refresh their phalanx fast enough, usually because they get stuck in a Paradise Lost lock. In that situation, you might actually end up with turns where you don't have a phalanx available, which can be bad news. In addition to phalanx, I'm bringing Hardened Shield for the delay effect primarily. You can use this to delay Lucilius to make him charge attack less and build less stacks of Evangelist Blade, but I prefer to keep this for situations like a Paradise Lost lock. What I mean by that is if both the Wings and Lucilius are full charge diamonds and I am not ready to take a Paradise Lost, I can use the Hardened Shield to delay the Wings or the body in order to get out of that lock. Worth noting, Hardened Shield misses all the time, especially if you throw it at the body. If you need to break out of a lock, I recommend you just Hardened Shield on the Black Wings because it will be more likely to land. This spell is interchangeable with Clarity depending on what your team comp is and what your raid comp is. Ideally, you want about 3 Clarities throughout the entire raid between all the players. That's usually enough to keep down the debuffs from Iblis. Dispels are very important to keeping Evangelist Blade down. I like to run no less than 3 Dispels between my main character, my characters, and my summons. If you can't get 3, you're gonna likely stack Evangelist Blade a little bit higher than you want. 1 Dispel, very much not enough, and you'll probably get Evangelist Blade all the way up to 5 stacks if that's the case. Substitute is a very important third skill. It basically gives you 100% cut if used with Phalanx. Very useful. Alright, grids. Gonna talk about them only briefly. The basic goal is 30,001 HP. That is not negotiable. If you don't have that, your character should die immediately entering the fight. Remember, you need to get that while also being able to deal 10 million damage in one turn. Along those lines, items like Sunset Fan are very useful because they give a big boost to HP while still giving a boost to attack. Things like Seraphic weapons are actually not ideal for this fight, and I probably should have replaced this harp, but I honestly didn't notice until just looking at it now. These are okay because they do give HP in addition to attack, so they help you reach that HP threshold. They're not ideal though because things like Teacher's Guidance don't actually work in this fight, because they're only against a specific element. Other than that, Dark Opus weapons are a good source of HP as well. They are a big majesty weapon. Again, you're going to have to tweak a lot in order to get these grids just right in terms of balancing between HP and damage, but most elements have some viable farming way of getting the grid set up in a way that works for them. Now, character recommendations. I'm going to give a few for each element. If you want a whole list, refer to Steve's guide. So, for water, Lily and Europa are probably core. They have a tremendous amount of healing and the ability to clear debuffs. Also, if you combine Europa's 2, which is an elemental switch, it changes incoming damage to fire. Lily's 1 is a fire damage cut. They work very well together in that regard. The third choice is usually 5-star Quattro if you have him. Quattro is very good at landing gravity. He has the highest chance to land it in the game. And he also can clear 30 damage instances in one turn, which is labor number 9, and also labor number 10, which is landing 10 debuffs. Earth recommendations, I would say Octo and some form of Alexio or Core. Octo because you need to have the 5-chain chain burst in order to clear labor number 8, and Earth is the most naturally suited to clear it. Octo is a very strong damage dealer and is probably going to be your best bet for also clearing your elemental damage labor. Not much in the way of utility, but can help boost the charge bar of your teammates. Alexiel, really don't need to explain a lot here. Gets you a Gaugeo free card with her damage cuts, and she dispels on Oogie, which is very important. Summer Alexiel is the other option. Largely the same things. She builds defense on your team. She also has gravity and all attacks substitute, and is generally very good. Either one of them will be fine for this fight. The third slot usually goes to someone either like Cagliostro or Summer Vera for dispels, heals, that kind of thing. Remember that Earth has very little access to healing, so some character that can heal is good in the third slot. You can even bring an FLB Rooster if you wanted. Win recommendations, Urias and Dira Grimnir. Urias is the ideal debuffer for this fight because at several stages Lucilius would clear debuffs on himself. Unlike Quattro, who has a cooldown on his debuff applications, Urias is unique in that he does not. He only requires charge bar and not that much of it to reapply debuffs. That means when something like Sephiroth goes off, Urias can immediately reapply all the necessary debuffs. Urias also can apply 7 debuffs on his own, and combined with Andira's 3 debuffs, that is 10 right there, immediately clearing labor number 10. Andira is ideal because she increases... Well, Andira is broken. Do I really have to explain that? She increases the damage of your team dramatically. She can also tank because she gets mirror image on her charge attack and can increase her own hostility with her 2. But beyond all that, the big thing is her 1 is a full party heal. It lowers your defense, but that's not that big a deal compared to the ability to fully party heal. Grimnir is there because Grimnir can give you the little bit of damage you need extra on your labor phase by popping his skills. There can be other characters that go there, but I personally like Grimnir. Grimnir also adds some defensive abilities with his mirror image on his skills. Some fire recommendations. Athena, very tanky, can get you some damage cuts, can delay, can also throw out a lot of hits. Anila, she gets you a heal, albeit not a great one, but she also has 12 debuffs on one button that lets you clear Labor 10 pretty much instantly if they all land. Esser, 5-star, does a ton of damage and can throw out a ton of hits. This is important because fire can usually clear Labor number 9, which is 30 instances of damage. You can do this by using the skills of various characters, and if you really need to, quill in and use them all over again. Also worth mentioning, since she just got her FLB right of this recording, Zeta 5-star is very good. She does a ton of damage, but she can deal 2 million plain damage no problem at level 100, which lets her clear Labor number 7. Already kind of went over light recommendations, but fun because she has heals, has clears, has dispels, basically everything. Also her 4 lets you survive Paradise Lost with 1 HP in the final damage phase. That can be relevant sometimes. Granblue, extremely powerful tank, probably the best tank in the game to be honest. Has dispel also, and can help build charge bar with her 3, which gives the whole team triple attack. Zoe, very useful because she can tank, and she also has a damage modifier which can help you get to that 10 million damage you need to deal. Recommendations for Dark. Summer Zoe is core here. Conjunction might seem really dangerous, but that's because you're a coward. No, really. Conjunction is very useful because it basically makes you enrollable on the turn you use it, letting you deal with things like Paradise Lost. Also, it lets you clear your labor fairly easily if you have any level of enmity weapons in your grid, because you'll be at 1. The only downside is if you have forbidden fruit on yourself and are about to charge attack, like to clear your labor, anybody that charged attacks with forbidden fruit will die because you'll take plain damage immediately after, which pierces Zoe's invulnerability. Other recommendations, Valentine's Clarice, she can clear the 2 million plain damage thing, no problem. And then Vania is very good, has charm, has dispel, has delay, has the whole package, does a lot of damage. Alright, some live fight commentaries, you can actually see what the fight's like. Doing this with 4 of 6 members of my crew, the other 2 are Japanese pugs from co-op. Go in, immediately get the Paradise Lost trigger, immediately heal up a bit with Funf, put Magic Torrent on somebody, Reincarnation, whatever. Send a sticker for potions, and then Blue Pot, I'll save the other one for a little later. Gonna target Lucilius for a Dispel to get rid of Evangelist Blade. And then we'll hit Lucilius with Zoe's 1 and 2 to get her tanking effect basically up. Sending OKs at the end of the turn to let everyone know it's okay to Phalanx again. Send I'm casting Phalanx, and then Phalanx. Communication is super important here. Also saving Vera's 1 in case I need it. Here, Lucilius is about to charge attack, so I do use Vera's 1. And she's also about to get full bits, so I might as well. And it will recharge by the time it becomes important again. For the damage, I'm going to go ahead and blue pot to make sure everyone has high stamina, since this is almost a full charge attack. And I ask for a phalanx. Pop yours 1 and go. And again, we're sending stickers to let everyone know that we have cleared our turn. And when you see generally enough stickers, that's when you know it's safe to phalanx without overlapping them. And there's the charge attack Iblis on Vera. Of course, she barely takes any damage from it because she's Vera. It's important you make sure you're attacking the wings at this point. You really shouldn't be hitting the body at all. Charge attack again. And then I'm going to build charge bar back up because I want full charge bar going to 50%. So I use Vera's 3. Also dispelling Evangelist Blade. Wings are going to charge attack. This will remove Wings of the Word, which is important. I need a phalanx. And there's the phalanx. And then we go. Something important to note here, I try not to use Zeus's very often, just because it's not a particularly useful summon to cross, and you don't want to fill the pool with summons that aren't particularly useful, because sometimes people will need something like an Athena or a Lucifer to heal. Important to know that Funt's heal also gives you stamina, so you can save it. I don't here, but you can save it if you need to get over the labors. Note how hard Lucilius is hitting, by the way, and that is with a phalanx. Without a phalanx, he will mess you up. Unless you're running like tons of garrison weapons. Tiamat is actually a good summon here because her mirror image is very, very relevant. Substitute plus a damage cut is basically a full cut, and that will be enough to absorb this charge attack. Wings are getting close to 50. At this point we start talking a little bit about who's going to take trumpets, because you want that to be a controlled decision. Again, I sticker before casting phalanx, always do that. Siva is calling for clarity here because she took probably an Iblis or something. I'm actually lined up for Paradise Lost right now, so this is a little awkward. Well, I'm in PL until some grabs hit. To get out of this Paradise Lost situation, I am gonna probably just end up trying to remember what I did. I think I just waited for them to push into 50%. And that's fine. If you get in a situation like this, and it's going to be rough if you go, just wait. It's fine. Like, if you have to give your friends a couple seconds to, like, push them into a phase where it's more beneficial for you to go, do that. Don't rush into something, especially if you don't know you can survive it and die, because that's the worst thing you can do. That can, in and of itself, wipe the raid right there. Near 50% on the wings tends to be a point where you slow down a lot, also because you need to kind of figure out who's going to go ahead and take the trumpets, because that can be very beneficial for elements that have trouble with it. I can soak it with my Zeus. I'm Zeusing there just to clear the pool. Actually, there's a red carbuncle. And there, someone pushed him into 50. Trumpets are up, labor's up. Now we're all just waiting for someone to clear 8. If you go before 8 is clear, you'll die, because your damage cut will cut nothing. And if it seems like I'm waiting a very long time, I'm also talking things through with my other team members here to decide when the best time to go would be for all of us. Communication's super important here. I want to get a Bahamut on my turn, so I just go here. Vera takes the Axiom Apocalypse like a champ. But yeah, I want a Bahamut, so I go to give myself my summon cooldown back. I just got figged. What the fuck is Vera briefly had Zombify on her, but somebody cleared it. I have the Fig on me, so if I use a skill, it will heal him, but it's also not a big deal. I don't Zombify up. I'm gonna top Vera off because she's a little bit lowish. I'm gonna go ahead and Bahamut. Cross that Lucifer. Totally wasn't accidental, totally expected that to happen. Now we'll go ahead and Zoe, that's 1,000,000 damage right there, and we'll go into clearing our labor. Just get those Evangelist Blade stacks down some more. It does heal him, but it's fine. "95% is a trigger on him. It's Phosphorus. That's part of the reason I'm hesitating to go here a little bit, because I'm going to push into that Phosphorus trigger. But it's fine. And don't forget those triggers, by the way. If you attack body to clear your labor without, like, seeing what health he's on and what trigger you're going to go into, that trigger will mess you up. In this case, it's fine, because I just dodge it on my main character. Anyways, my labor's clear. Only labors left are water and 12. 12 clears when all labors are clear, so as soon as water clears our labor, we will be good to go. And then it will just be onwards. There's an 85% trigger. We're all discussing how we're going to handle that. Primarily discussing who's going to push into that. The thing with triggers is a lot of them you can skip if you wait, if you don't move until the next trigger comes up. I can move and get it. So I go ahead and pop that Aegis Merge up. Since we're going to be getting near 85, and I don't want to take an Axion without being sure that no one's going to die from it. You have to be careful, because it's unlikely I'm going to push them all the way 85, but if I go and someone else goes at the same time, who knows? You could accidentally run into 85. I was in a Paradise Lost setup there, but I used my shield throw to delay the body. It would have been safer to delay the wings, but it's also more beneficial to delay the body, since its charge attacks are much worse. Gonna go ahead and quill in here, get all of my stuff back. Again, dispel the body, get rid of Evangelist Blade stacks. This is why Quillen is very good. This is why the spell skills are very good. Gonna just use everything since I have it all back. And we're still all a little bit hesitant because the body is on 85%. Also, the wings do need to die fairly soon because, again, bad triggers happen. If you hit 75%, the wings are still alive. Again, delay that body since I got my shield throw back with Quillen, just to keep from taking a charge attack for a little bit longer. And it seems like we're not doing a ton of damage. That's generally how this fight goes until you clear the wings. By the time the labors and the wings are clear, it speeds up a lot. But up to till then, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, so everyone's trying to take it slow and safe. Like, if you look at the rankings right now, no one's pushing fast, because pushing fast gets you killed, so don't do that. Very close to getting into 85%. There it goes across the 85% threshold, and we're going to finish off those wings because we're getting close to 75%. There's Axion, hits Vera for a considerable amount of damage given that's Vera, but it's fine. Vera is very unlikely to die from something like that, as long as you have some form of damage reduction. Losing Vera at this point isn't that big a deal also because I will lose her to go for Wood Arc at 25%. That Shiva cross though. Axie Apocalypse. Again, Vera is a beast, so she takes the whole thing even though it's AoE. And now the wings are dead, and now we'll push a lot faster. Again, the time limit is 30 minutes. I can't remember how long this clear took us. I want to say it was something like 15. It was pretty fast. 15, 20. This song is so fucking over the top. Now that the wings are dead, and we're past 85% trigger, only real things that happen are 70% Lucilius will fill charge bar. The important one is 60% Axion. Axions are always super dangerous, so always be aware of when Axion's coming, because that can kill your entire front line if you mess it up. And then it's off to the races pretty much until we start getting near 60. I'm not refreshing return turns here also because I want to get good footage, and that makes for bad footage, but also it's nice to see what actually happened on each turn, because you don't want to just reload and come back dead and aren't sure what killed you and don't learn, and then you don't learn anything of the fight. You want to learn everything. You want to learn from every fight, because this is definitely a fight you learn in pieces over time. The first few times you're going to run into some trigger you weren't ready for, and then the next time you don't run into that trigger because you learned from the first time. That's how you learn this fight, because there's so many mechanics. We're approaching 60, so we all have to be a little bit careful here. Also, like I said, you can skip triggers if you wait until the next trigger after it crosses. So if I didn't go until 55, 60 wouldn't happen because 55 is a charge bar fill trigger. At least if I remember right, that's how it works. Have to double check that one, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So here I'm doing Athena crossed with, freaking Athena, which is not intentional, but Athena with Phalanx, because that's 100% cut. So no damage from phosphorus there. Does dispel everything, is super annoying though. Going to 40%. No triggers from between 50% to 25%, so this is pretty much just get damage in and don't mess up your charge bar. Mess up with timing his charge bar. Yeah, good. Oh, sorry, yawned. I'm recording this at like 2 in the morning. Finishing this guide has been on my to-do list for a while, so I'm just trying to power through until I get all the content out there. And again, we're in voice chat the whole time, so there's discussion as to what everyone's doing at any given point. But you can get by without having a group of people in voice chat. Stickers are generally enough. That's how you do it if it's all pugs, and that's fine. It's nice, though, to have voice chat because you can ask people to pass you a summon if you need one. You can let someone know if you're stuck and can't push, stuff like that. Orbital Blackness is, generally speaking, the least dangerous of the things he does. Halation is kind of annoying, but not being able to see your health bar shouldn't be a big deal. You should have some idea what health your characters are on. 20% is go for wood arc. I'm trying to remember if I actually cross or wait. The timer's on 6 here, so it's safe for me to cross. If the timer is on something like 3, then you have to be careful about crossing because a lot of people usually have a -1. And if like 3 people have a -1 cross 25, then, well, that's the end right there. Here we go forward arc. This is gonna kill Vera, which makes me very sad, but it's fine. And again, you can't summon after this point. So getting 100% cut is actually quite tricky once the Paradise Losts start flying at 10%. Raids can falter on this last push, especially if things have gone badly prior to here, but this last push, in general, if nothing too bad's gone wrong, you're probably fine. You do want to make sure you have some burst at the end here, because you hit a point where there's no safe way to go, because he's going to start throwing Paradise Losses, and there's only so many of those you can mitigate back to back. 15%, 20% and 50% are Axion Apocalypses too. That's also basically between 20% and 0. There are 5 triggers, 2 Axion Apocalypses, and I think 3 Paradise Lost. So it gets dangerous in this last part. We're getting to the 10%. 10% is Paradise Lost, so I'm going to pop Thumps 4, which is particularly handy because the Guts effect does work on Paradise Lost here. It will leave everyone on 1, so I can go freely at least once. It's actually fine because I don't even push him into 10%, but I think he is about to go into 10%. There he goes, down to 9, back to 10, down to 9, down to 7, and it's basically go time. At this point, the raid is doing well enough that, like, it will be hard for us to mess this up. But we're still going to be a little bit careful. It's time to go. This last stretch, you kind of want to let people who can safely take a PL to push as far as they can until they can't safely push anymore, and then everyone goes. Because some people can some elements can safely take a PL. There you go. Funts 4 basically leaves everyone on 1. Means I'm not going to do a whole hell of a lot of damage, but I'll throw whatever nukes I can. Don't forget those Evangelist Blade stacks. Never forget them. So I'm 3%. Just get my damage out there. My burst is extremely low since I am so hurt at this point. That is the drawback of stamina weapons. Here comes the Paradise Lost again. Alright, we managed to not fuck that up on film, so I got my footage. And he's dead. Good game. So basically that's Lucilius HL. It is quite an intense fight, but if you take it step by step, you can handle it. No, like, anyone can handle this fight. You just gotta take it step by step, learn it piece by piece. Run it, get killed by a trigger, don't get killed by a trigger the next time. Run it, get killed by another trigger, don't get killed by that trigger the next time. Just keep pushing, and you can learn this fight. If you are still here at the end of this very long guide, thank you so much for sticking with it. I was very daunted by the idea of doing a Lucilius HL video, but I think it's important that people know that this is an entirely doable fight. It just takes some time to get strong enough, some time to learn the mechanics, and ideally some friends to support you along the way. I would like to thank my crew, the Yums crew, along with specifically Steve, A+, Siva, Balloon, Alice, and Redo for putting up with me as I learned the fight and as I filmed footage for this guide. I would also thank Ceramello for their excellent trigger guide, which I will include in the link below, and Midokuni for their excellent notes and tips for the different labors, and the Grandblue Fantasy Wiki, which has always been invaluable for detailed information on Grandblue Fantasy in English. Thank you all again, and I hope this was super helpful. Bye!